Okay, so this is a slideshow of how I got to start my chicken coop. Here you see my garden, raised garden bed that I had at first, and then I thought I would build the chicken coop behind it over here, maybe about the same size, different angle shots here. So I had this kind of room where I thought it'd be a good place to put the chicken coop. I started with laying bricks, nice and level. Then I put pressure treated 2x4s on top of the bricks. I used sand to pave it and make it nice and level. I kind of started the process this way. I wanted to get the coop part of the whole coop and run assembly together. Here you see the 2x4s. Mostly everything was done by pocket hole joinery. So if you haven't done any of that, check it out. It's real cool. Here you can see the pocket holes of how I assembled that. But I kept going here. The structure is almost all done. You can see the hardware cloth on the bottom is already installed. I did that early on so that I wouldn't have an issue putting it on later, since everything would be covered up. Here you see the plywood I put in, pretty thick plywood, that way it wouldn't rot pretty quickly or easily, or anything, have any issues if it got wet or anything like that. But I continued working away, sometimes into the evening hours, just because I was running out of time. I had already bought the chicks, and it's kind of like one of those problems where you have the wagon before the horse. So I needed to hurry over and make their home so that I can put them in here as they got older. But here you see I put in the walls. I just went with the cheap little thin outside plywood. I thought about doing T111s, but it was a little too pricey for that. So I did this. I figured it would help, and eventually I could just replace it without much of an issue. I left the one side there without the cut opening for the egg hutch, because I was gonna worry about one first before the other. That opening for their little door into the run is there. And here I also, you see, I put siding all the way around for the deep litter system that I will eventually talk about some more in other videos. So the windows are all cut out. That long rectangle is for the egg hutch. You can see it from the outside here on the right side of the video, or the picture. But again, my chicks were already in my garage in this water trough, just waiting to be transported over to their new home. I eventually put them in this cage because they were starting to get older and bigger. And just a few pictures of our little chicks. So I put a primer all around our coop once things were going. Started building the little kind of tailgate type assembly for the doors to the front end of the coop. That was a pretty neat little idea there. And then a lot of the things I did were with these bolts and gate latches, and these black hinges also were pretty cool looking and very inexpensive on Amazon. So I recommend those. They're kind of cheap quality, but good enough for what I needed them to do. Again, more pictures of how I put these bolts right here. But this was a pretty cool assembly. It took me a while to get these done with the hardware cloth in the inside, but then coming back later to build the inner doors was pretty kind of, I guess, time consuming. But I started putting the joists and roof, whatever you call those. Sometimes I forget the names. My apologies. But things were going. I drilled those holes on those horizontal 2x4s for ventilation. I heard ventilation is very important, so I made sure to do that as well. Put the hardware cloth in the inside of those windows, and things continued moving along. As you can see here, the opening there was there. Sometimes, again, I would be in there working in the evening hours just because I didn't have much time and I wanted to get this accomplished, but it was cool out there. Here you can see, so here I started building the run portion of the chicken coop. You can see all these 2x4s being put up everywhere. That was a little difficult to do, so please get help if you can. It was difficult by myself. And more pictures of our chicks. And again, they were growing, getting bigger. It was our first time having chicks, so it was pretty cool to see them. But here you see pictures of white now, primer going all over around our chicken coop, 2x4s. I chose to just use regular wood, not pressure treated for the all the uppers, and then I primered it and painted it with exterior latex paint to hopefully withstand the elements. I didn't want to spend all pressure treated wood or that money on that, and it was going to be too costly. So things you can think about. But anyway, the trusses were going up here. I just got different ideas from different things, the Carolina Coop Company and other YouTube videos and Pinterest type ideas, and ideas from my father-in-law to make this all happen. Here you can see the hardware cloth is already all the way around the chicken run, and those are all 1/4 by 1/4 inch squares, hardware cloth, 4 foot width in most of them. Some were 3 foot. I try to keep it all 4 foot, but then I also had certain areas where I had to go 3. So depending on the things, because the width was 10 feet, so things had to be adjusted a little bit. But anyway, things were coming along here. It started looking like a building, like a structure, and it was very cool to see. This took me a long time to build, so it didn't happen overnight, you can tell. During this time, when everything was enclosed, I thought I would bring our chicks out here, and you can see we brought them in here. They were having some outside time, and then I put a heat lamp out there for them so they can have a light during the night while I continued working some. But things worked out. They were doing well. I had this cage here around the property, so I used it. I just put a tarp around it with a heat lamp there, so it kind of gave them protection and an enclosure, and a thermometer in there to monitor the heat. But you can see with these pictures, they were there quite a bit of the time, but had a lot of room to maneuver and run as I continued working away. Here you can see the front doors were all completed and the window was installed, so that was a big accomplishment. The roof was already done over here. I didn't take a lot of pictures throughout the process. I didn't think I was going to do this, but I was just doing it for me, just for the memory's sake. But here you can see the almost completed project here. Everything painted nice and bright white. The gate latch is there, hardware cloth. Some people say that if you paint the hardware cloth black, that it will become see-through. So if that's something you want to do, by all means do it. I've seen people do it and it looks pretty cool, but I didn't want to go through that hassle. I already put a lot of time and energy in this thing. You can tell the size of this. Spent a lot of time and money doing it. And it's pretty good. I keep building and doing things, and I think slowly things will get better. You can see the windows going all the way across there up top, and they're partially open. I didn't have a chain set up yet, so I just put a 2x4 as a spacer to keep it open. And then the feeder, as things changed, as the chicks got older, you can tell they went all the way up in there, going into their roosting bars. And speaking of roosting bars, here you go. I built a little ladder so they can climb in and out of there pretty easily. And a couple shots for the roosting bars. Nothing fancy. I just cut 2x4s, cut the angles off on the corners so they won't be too sharp. That's all I did. And pictures of the outside. The gate latches there to keep the doors pried open, basically, so the wind won't shut them and you can keep them open all through the warmer months. Here's my wife and daughter sitting out there visiting with the chicks, and sitting out there in a tiny little chair, all wanting to be there together. But this is what gave me the idea of, well, they like being out there, but they don't really like sitting on chairs left out there because they get pooped on all over. So that gave me an idea that later comes up in the video, in other videos to come. But little perching areas for them, a little swing. You can see here a more completed project. And those chicks became chickens. Here you can see they're way bigger. Just a little extra chicken footage. We would go out there quite a bit, so you can see they were tame and they didn't mind coming to us. So it was pretty cool. It's been a real good adventure seeing how the chicks get older and get to be hens and roosters, and just seeing the transitions and seeing them grow and all the changes they go through is pretty cool. So just wanted to share a few pictures of our chickens. Over time we got others. These were our initial ones, and then we kind of traded out almost all of the roosters, and then got other hens. You can see here the outside of the egg hutch. You can see inside there I have a cardboard covering it. That way the chicks could still be in there but not have access to the outside. And the front view of our garden area with our coop in the back. Over time we did get 2 baby goats. You can see them here. They enjoyed being in with the chickens. There was plenty of room for them to be roaming around, so they were born in a chicken coop kind of like this, so they enjoyed being around chickens and they didn't bother them. Chickens didn't feel annoyed by them. Eventually I thought about building this little thing for them, and then this tire came about so we can have a bird bath for them. Again, the feeder here, just different things that we did for our animals. This little stepping area for our goats. And then a friend of ours gave us this sign, so we became chicken owners. So it's been kind of fun. Here's one of our chickens on our bench. And more chicken pictures. Eventually, we got our first egg, and that was exciting. Just like any owner, it's just like, so when a new change happens and you get your first egg, very exciting news. We took a picture of that first egg. And here's one of my daughters holding a chicken and playing with the goats and feeding them. So 1 egg eventually led to 2 eggs, and you know what happens then. Just having chickens around, of course, eventually you get more eggs. But you can see our happy chickens. And then the outside of the property there continued growing. Things that kept changing. You can see here eventually we started getting more eggs. Just everything changed around. My wife got more pregnant and needed that bench. I have a video about that bench that I can share with you guys later. But here you can see the different changes going on around the coop. Of course, more eggs. Eventually, from 1 egg to 2 egg to all of these eggs, we thought we were striking it rich. And here's my girls helping me paint this barn red so we can give the coop the final look that we wanted to have. So here you have it. Picture of the new changes with the beautiful sunset, and finally finishing up the coop. So here it is, bright red and white. So I hope you enjoyed just a little slideshow of how my process went from nothing to completing my chicken coop. I know it's not a traditional how-to video, but I just wanted to share how I built it, the different pictures I had. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully this shows you different ideas on, if you want to build your own coop, how you can make it happen yourself too.